It's been a year since I moved to North Dakota for work. What was supposed to be a temporary move stretched into 3 years. And even now, the memories of those late-night drives between North Dakota and Montana haunt me. Being from Montana, I used to drive back home on my days off every couple of weeks. The journey was a 3.5-hour stretch of mostly 2-lane roads through desolate, uninhabited land. On those late-night drives, I'd rarely see more than 2 cars. There was one particular stretch of Highway 16 that was especially isolated, with no houses or signs of life in sight. What happened there still sends chills down my spine. It was a pitch-black night, darker than anything I'd ever experienced. As someone who didn't readily believe in the supernatural, I brushed off most eerie occurrences. But that night, something changed. I was halfway through my drive and cruising alongside a river. The moonlight shimmered on the water, but something caught my eye, thick, dense fog hovering over the river. Unlike any normal mist, this was a compact, defined mass, almost as if it had a shape. It moved deliberately, rolling toward the road. Curiosity got the better of me, and I slowed down, my eyes fixed on it. As I rounded a corner, I glanced ahead and slammed on the brakes. In the middle of the road stood a massive, hazy object, the same fog I'd seen over the river. It wasn't like normal fog that envelops everything around it. This had edges, a form, and it radiated an unnatural presence. My heart raced as I tried to process what I was seeing. Then, in the blink of an eye, it vanished. Shaken, I continued my drive, convincing myself it was a trick of the light or my tired eyes. A few weeks later, driving back to Montana in the same area, I saw him. It was around 3:30 a.m. My headlights landed on the hunched figure of a man walking along the shoulder of the road. He carried a large walking stick and wore what looked like a cloak made of animal hide. Something about him felt wrong. This stretch of highway was miles from any town or house, and the sheer isolation of his presence unnerved me. As I slowed to pass him, he turned to look at me. His face was a void, but his eyes, they glowed red, deep, unearthly red. My chest tightened, and I gripped the steering wheel, speeding past him as fast as I could. My mind scrambled for logic, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the image of those eyes. 10 miles later, I saw something else. A dog-like creature, walking on its hind legs, crossed the road in front of me. Its posture mirrored the man's, and when it turned to look at me, I saw the same glowing red eyes. I froze, unable to breathe. As quickly as it appeared, it was gone. Panic overtook me. I locked my doors, turned on every light in my car, and sped toward the nearest town. The final encounter solidified my fear of that highway. I was driving back to Montana again, and my tire pressure light came on. With no cell service in the area, I had no choice but to pull over. Steeling myself, I grabbed a flashlight and stepped out of the car. The front tires were fine, but the rear tire was completely flat. As I cursed my luck, I heard footsteps. Fast, heavy footsteps, running toward me. I froze, shining my flashlight into the darkness. A tall, shadowy figure was sprinting in my direction. The flashlight slipped from my hand and went out. My heart pounded as I scrambled back into the car, locking the doors and rolling up the windows. But the nightmare wasn't over. I cracked the window to listen, hoping the footsteps were just my imagination. Instead, I heard heavy, wet breathing right outside the car. My blood ran cold. The car wouldn't start. No matter how many times I turned the key, it refused to respond. Tears streamed down my face as I stared straight ahead, refusing to look at the passenger window, where I thought I saw fogged breath. Finally, the engine roared to life. Without hesitation, I floored it, driving 30 miles on a flat tire, destroying the rim in the process. I didn't care. I just needed to get away. Months later, I shared my experiences with a friend who had lived in North Dakota before me. Before I could finish my story, his face went pale. He interrupted saying, "You've seen it too." He pulled out a notebook and handed it to me, flipping to a specific page. Written there was his account of a cloaked man with red eyes and a dog-like creature on hind legs, the exact things I'd seen. My hands trembled as I read his words. There was no way we could have fabricated the same story. Whatever haunted Highway 16 was real. To this day, I avoid that stretch of road at all costs. Something lurks there, something beyond our understanding, and I have no desire to ever encounter it again.